Hello and welcome to Beyond the Classroom. I'm Kendra, and today we're going to be talking all about the different zones in the ocean and learning about the weird and wonderful animals that call the deep ocean home. Let's start by going over our materials. If you registered for a kit, you should have containers with corn syrup, dish soap, vegetable oil, and rubbing alcohol, as well as some blue food coloring, a plastic funnel, and a plastic container. We have a container of water here, but you will need to provide your own water. You might also want to grab a spoon, just so that you have something to stir in the food coloring with. All right, let's get started. The ocean covers 3/4 or 75% of the Earth's surface. It stretches from coral reefs in shallow coastal zones to the deepest, darkest trenches at the bottom of the ocean. So the first zone that we're going to start with is the deepest. It's the hadopelagic zone, also known as the trench zone. When you go to the bottom of the trenches, there is absolutely no sunlight. It's total darkness. The water is right around freezing, and even though it is cold and really, really dark, there are some animals that still live here. Animals like snailfish, crabs, and sea cucumbers call the deep trenches home. Now, one really cool thing about trenches is they don't happen everywhere. If you watched our plate tectonics video, you'll remember that we talked about convergent boundaries. Trenches happen when two plates come together and one sinks underneath the other. The deepest trench in the ocean is called the Marianas Trench in the Pacific. To represent this deepest layer in the ocean, we're going to take our corn syrup, go ahead and unscrew it, and take our blue food coloring, and we're going to go ahead and put in a few drops of blue into this corn syrup so that we get a nice, deep, dark color. So once you pour it in, take your spoon and just start stirring. Okay, I think that's pretty deep, dark blue. Now, you're going to open up your container, put your funnel in the top, and pour your corn syrup into the container. And corn syrup can be really sticky, so try not to get too much on your hands. Now I have these little labels, so I'm actually going to go ahead and label that layer trench. The next zone in the ocean is called the abyss zone. Just like in the trenches, there's no light that comes into this area, and water temperatures are just above freezing. In most parts of the world, this zone stretches all the way down to the very bottom of the ocean floor. And there are actually some things called thermal vents that come out of the ocean floor, and it's where gases and minerals from deep, deep inside the Earth's crust escape and flow into the water. Despite the cold and the dark, animals like tube worms, again, crabs, and even octopus live in this area, and they usually live around these thermal vents because they feed off of the minerals that the vents provide. To represent this layer, we're going to grab our dish soap, unscrew the lid, and just like with the corn syrup, we're going to pour it on top. Pour it kind of slowly just because you don't want the two to mix, but the dish soap should just sit right on top of the corn syrup because it's less dense. All right, and again, we're going to label this layer. You don't have to label it if you don't want to. After the abyss zone comes the midnight zone. The only light in this area is what comes from the animals themselves. A lot of animals like jellyfish, squids, and anglerfish create their own light called bioluminescence. Bio means life, and luminesce means to give off light. So these animals are creating life light. If you've ever seen a lightning bug in the summer, that's an example of bioluminescence. Some animals like anglerfish actually use their light to attract prey. Now, to represent this layer, we're going to take our water and again use our blue food coloring, but we're going to use not as many drops. We'll just do 2 and see where that gets us. Go ahead and stir that around. And we're going to slowly, again, pour that on top of the dish soap. If you pour it too fast, you're just going to end up with some bubbles. So this step might take a little time. After the midnight zone comes the twilight zone. Some light can enter this area, but most of the animals that live in this zone still create bioluminescence. Animals like squid, jellyfish, and chambered nautilus actually take a nightly migration from this zone of the ocean up to the surface to feed. This daily movement is the largest migration of animals in the world. To create this layer, we're going to take our vegetable oil. We're not going to worry about dyeing it. The slight yellow color of the oil will represent the sunlight that can enter this area. And we're going to, again, slowly pour it on top. You might have to raise your funnel up a little bit. Our final layer of the ocean is the one that we're the most familiar with. It's called the sunlight zone because this is the surface to 650 feet down, and a lot of sunlight enters this area. Because there's so much sunlight, it's pretty warm, and animals that feed via photosynthesis, similar to what plants do, can live and thrive in this zone. And animals that we're really familiar with, like manta rays, great white and hammerhead sharks, whales, and dolphins, all live in this zone. To represent this layer, we are going to take our rubbing alcohol and pour it on top of our oil, and you'll want to hold your funnel up. Be careful with the rubbing alcohol, just because if it gets into your eyes or anything, it can be really irritating. That was our final layer, so let's go over our ocean zones one more time. At the very bottom, we have our deep, dark trench zone. On top of that, we have our abyss. On top of that, we have the midnight zone, the twilight zone, and then the final sunlight zone. As you can see, we have these really nice different layers of different colors showing all the different sections of the ocean. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, be sure to check out some of these items. Ocean Animals and Their Ecosystems, a nature reference book for kids by Dr. Erica Colon. Do Jellyfish Like Peanut Butter? By Corinne Damas and Artemis Rarig, illustrated by Ellen Shee. The Sea Knows by Alice B. McGinty and Alan B. Havis, illustrated by Stephanie Labaris. And Fish Everywhere by Bretta Teckentrup. I hope you enjoyed today's session of Beyond the Classroom. I'll see you next time. Bye.